A millionaire saw an orphan girl holding his photo in an orphanage. When he approached, he was shocked to see that she had the same mark on her arm as he did. Rain hammered against the windshield as Sarah Miller struggled to maintain control of her car. Through the rearview mirror, she caught glimpses of her 6-year-old daughter Emma, clutching her teddy bear in the backseat. "Mummy, I'm scared," Emma whimpered as thunder crashed overhead. "It's okay, sweetheart." We're almost. Sarah's words cut off as headlights suddenly blinded her. A truck had veered into their lane, its horn blaring through the storm. Sarah jerked the wheel, desperate to avoid collision. The car hydroplaned, spinning violently across the wet road. Time seemed to slow. Sarah saw Emma's terrified face in the mirror, those blue eyes, Jack's eyes wide with fear. The photo she always carried, the one of her and Jack from years ago, fluttered from the dashboard like a leaf in the wind. "Hold on," baby Sarah screamed as the car careened off the road, rolling down the embankment. Glass shattered. Metal screamed. In those final moments, Sarah's only thought was protecting her daughter. The car came to rest upside down, rain drumming against the crushed roof. Sarah hung suspended by her seatbelt, blood trickling down her face. Through waves of pain, she heard Emma's soft sobs. "Emma? Emma, can you hear me?" "Mummy, I'm hurt." "There's something wet." Using her last strength, Sarah reached for her purse, fingers fumbling for the photo and the letter she'd written years ago but never sent. "Emma, listen carefully. The photo, the man in the photo, he's your father. His name is Jack. Jack Thornton. The man in the picture. But you said, I was wrong, so wrong to keep you apart. Find him, Emma. He's a good man. He'll love you as much as I do." Sarah's vision began to dim, but she forced herself to continue. "Promise me you'll find him." "I promise, Mummy. Please don't leave me." Sarah heard sirens in the distance. "I love you, my brave girl. Always remember that. And tell Jack. Tell him I'm sorry." As consciousness faded, Sarah's last thought was of the matching birthmarks, the small crescent shapes on Jack's neck and Emma's, the undeniable sign of their connection that she'd hidden for so long. Now that truth would die with her, unless Emma could find her way to the father she'd never known. Emergency lights flashed through the rain, illuminating a small girl with a teddy bear, a crumpled photo, and a destiny that would change more lives than anyone could imagine. If this heart-wrenching beginning moved you, join us on a journey of love, sacrifice, and redemption. Subscribe now to unlock more powerful stories that will touch your soul and remind you of life's most precious gifts. Jack Thornton stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city lights flicker like stars beneath him. At 42, he had everything money could buy, yet nothing that truly mattered. Forbes magazine lay open on his desk, his face on the cover with the headline, "The $2 billion man Jack Thornton's Rise to Power." 20 years ago, he'd started with nothing but ambition and a borrowed laptop in his parents' garage. Now, Thornton Industries dominated the tech industry, with offices in 12 countries and over 10,000 employees. Success had come at a price, though one he was only beginning to understand. His marriage had lasted barely 3 years before ending in a bitter divorce. His relationships since then had been brief and superficial, each woman seemingly more interested in his bank account than his heart. The endless cycle of business meetings, charity galas, and corporate acquisitions had become a hollow routine. The only real connection he'd felt was with Sarah Miller during that summer 15 years ago. She was different, genuine, caring, full of dreams about helping others. But she'd disappeared without explanation, leaving only a brief note about needing to find her own path. He'd tried to find her at first, but pride and hurt had eventually won out. Now she was just another ghost in his collection of regrets. Jack's fingers absently traced the crescent-shaped birthmark on his neck, a habit from childhood that surfaced when he was troubled. His executive assistant, Richard Walsh, had been pushing him to consider another merger, but something felt off about the deal. Richard had been with him since the beginning, helping build the company from nothing, but lately their visions seemed to be diverging. The intercom buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. "Mr. Thornton, the board is waiting in the conference room." "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes," Jack replied, straightening his tie in the window's reflection. Another day, another decision that would make him richer but not necessarily happier. As he gathered his papers, his eyes fell on a newspaper article about local orphanages struggling with funding cuts. He'd been meaning to set up a charitable foundation, good PR, his advisors said, but hadn't found the time. Something about the article tugged at him, but he pushed the feeling aside. There were deals to close, empires to build. Walking through the office, Jack noticed how his employees avoided eye contact, scurrying away like mice before a cat. When had he become so intimidating? When had success turned him into someone even he didn't recognize? The weight of his empty achievements pressed down on him as he approached the conference room. Through the glass walls, he could see Richard already charming the board members, smooth as ever. Jack paused, straightening his shoulders and putting on the mask of the confident CEO everyone expected him to be. But before he could open the door, a strange sensation washed over him, a feeling that his life was about to change dramatically. He dismissed it as nothing more than stress, or perhaps that third cup of coffee. After all, what could possibly shake the carefully constructed world of Jack Thornton? Little did he know, across town in a run-down orphanage, a little girl with his eyes and his birthmark was clutching a worn photograph, dreaming of a father she'd never met but desperately needed to find. The door opened, and Jack stepped into the conference room, unaware that his greatest challenge and his greatest joy awaited him not in the boardroom, but in the heart of a child who would soon turn his world upside down. Emma sat alone in the corner of Sunrise Haven Orphanage's dimly lit playroom, tracing the outline of a man's face in the worn photograph she always carried. Other children played nearby, their laughter a stark contrast to her solitude. At 6 years old, she had already learned to make herself invisible, a skill born of necessity rather than choice. Miss Harrison, one of the newer caretakers, watched Emma with poorly concealed disdain. That strange birthmark, she'd whisper to other staff members, pointing at the crescent shape on Emma's neck. It's almost unnatural. No wonder no one wants to adopt her. The old building creaked and groaned, its peeling walls holding countless stories of abandoned dreams. Emma's bed was in the far corner of the girls' dormitory, where shadows gathered thickest at night. She preferred it that way. It was easier to hide her tears when the nightmares came, the ones filled with screeching tires and breaking glass. Mrs. Winters, the orphanage's director, had once been kind to Emma, but that changed after discovering the girl's habit of stealing extra food from the kitchen. Ungrateful child. She'd scolded, not understanding that Emma was taking the food to share with younger children who were often left hungry. The other children had initially tried to befriend her, drawn by her quiet strength and the mysterious story of how she'd arrived at Sunrise Haven. But Emma kept her distance, protecting the precious memories of her mother and the secret of the man in the photograph. She'd overheard the staff discussing her case one night, how her mother had died protecting her in the crash, how no relatives could be found. Today was visiting day, and prospective parents wandered the halls like window shoppers at a mall. Emma watched as they gravitated toward the prettier, younger children, those untouched by tragedy's heavy hand. She clutched her mother's photo tighter, her small fingers feeling the folded edges where she'd carefully preserved every detail. "Emma," Mrs. Winters' sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "The Hendersons would like to meet you. Do try to smile this time." The Hendersons were the third couple this month, wealthy, well-dressed, and looking to add a charitable footnote to their social status. Emma knew the routine. She would be paraded out like a show pony, expected to perform the role of the grateful orphan. "Hello, Emma," Mrs. Henderson cooed, her diamond rings catching the fluorescent light. "What a unique mark you have there." Emma's hand instinctively covered her birthmark. She saw the familiar look of discomfort cross their faces, followed by the polite excuses. Later she would overhear them asking about normal children, ones without peculiarities. But that night, as rain tapped against the windows, Emma pulled out her most treasured possession, the photo her mother had pressed into her hands during those final moments. The man in it stood tall and confident, his smile kind, with a birthmark identical to hers partially visible on his neck. "Your father," her mother had whispered. "Jack Thornton. Find him, Emma. Promise me." Emma had promised, but 6 months had passed, and she remained trapped in Sunrise Haven, watching her chances of a real family fade with each passing day. The staff had dismissed her stories about the man in the photo as trauma-induced fantasy. They'd even tried to take the picture away once, stopping only when Emma's screams threatened to wake the entire building. Outside her window, city lights twinkled like distant stars, and somewhere out there, she knew, was the man from the photo, her father. She touched her birthmark, a perfect match to his, and whispered her nightly prayer, "Please, help me find you. Please, don't let me be alone forever." Little did she know, forces were already in motion that would answer her prayer, though not in any way she could have imagined. The connection between Jack Thornton and Emma Miller existed long before either knew of the other's presence, woven through coincidences too perfect to be mere chance. While Jack built his empire floor by floor, he unknowingly passed within blocks of his daughter nearly every day, their paths crossing like ships in the night. The crescent-shaped birthmark they shared was more than a mere physical trait. In Irish folklore, such marks were said to be signs of destiny, bonds that could transcend any distance. Jack's mother had once told him it was a blessing, though he'd dismissed it as superstition. Now, the same mark on Emma's neck drew whispers and stares at Sunrise Haven, making her feel like an outsider. Their similarities went beyond the physical. Both possessed an innate determination that set them apart. Where Jack channeled his into business ventures, Emma showed hers in quiet acts of defiance, sneaking extra blankets to younger children on cold nights, standing up to bullies despite the consequences. But they shared the same furrow of concentration, the same slight tilt of the head when listening intently. Sarah had noticed these parallels during Emma's early years, each shared trait a reminder of her fateful decision to keep father and daughter apart. She documented them all in her diary, which lay hidden in a safety deposit box alongside letters she'd written to Jack but never sent. The truth she carried had weighed heavily on her conscience, leading her to finally decide to tell Jack everything on that rainy night, a decision that came too late. 3 times in the past 6 months, Jack had attended charity events at venues overlooking Sunrise Haven. Once, he'd even commented on the old building, suggesting it might make a good location for urban development. Each time, Emma had been there, sometimes watching from windows as elegant cars passed by, unaware that her father was so close. Richard Walsh, Jack's trusted assistant, had actually visited Sunrise Haven 2 months ago, supposedly scouting locations for a corporate responsibility project. He'd walked right past Emma in the hallway, his eyes sliding over her without recognition. But he'd seen the photograph she clutched, and something in it had made him pause. He'd requested the orphanage's records that same day, though his reasons remained his own. The staff at Sunrise Haven had their own theories about Emma's origins. Some believed Sarah's claims about Jack Thornton were delusions born of desperation. Others thought the matching birthmarks were too specific to be coincidental. A few even suggested that Sarah had been lying to protect someone else's secret. Yet the truth was there, hidden in plain sight. Every time Emma appeared in the local newspaper's coverage of the orphanage, Jack's employees would comment on how the girl's expression reminded them of their boss. When Jack's rare, genuine smile appeared in business magazines, the same determination that lit Emma's eyes during her hardest days shone in his. They even shared the same unconscious habits, the way they rubbed their birthmarks when troubled, how they arranged items in perfect alignment, their preference for watching storms from windows. These invisible threads of connection stretched between them, waiting to be discovered. Now, as autumn winds scattered leaves across the city, these parallel lives were about to intersect. The universe, having kept them apart for so long, had finally tired of the separation. Like two stars slowly drawn together by gravity, Jack and Emma's orbits were about to collide, triggered by a series of events that would shake both their worlds to the core. Neither could have predicted how their first meeting would unfold, or the forces that would try to keep them apart, but the bond between them, marked in their flesh and written in their blood, would prove stronger than any obstacle fate could devise. The morning Jack Thornton first saw his daughter began like any other. He arrived at Sunrise Haven Orphanage for what was supposed to be a routine publicity visit, another photo opportunity to soften his corporate image. Richard Walsh had arranged everything, insisting this particular orphanage would be perfect for launching their new charitable foundation. "Remember, Mr. Thornton," Richard briefed him as they walked up the worn steps. "Smile for the cameras, shake hands with the director, and try to look appropriately concerned about the children's welfare." His assistant's tone carried its usual hint of condescension, though Jack had long since learned to ignore it. Mrs. Winters greeted them at the entrance, her grey hair pulled back in a severe bun, her smile as practiced as Jack's own. "Mr. Thornton, what an honor to have you visit our humble establishment." The cameras flashed as they shook hands, capturing the moment for tomorrow's business section. Something felt different about this visit, though. As they toured the facility, Jack found himself genuinely affected by the peeling paint, the worn furniture, the hollow eyes of children who had seen too much too soon. He touched his birthmark unconsciously, a habit that emerged when he was troubled. They reached the main playroom, where children had been carefully arranged in photogenic groups, playing with toys that Jack suspected had been brought out specifically for this occasion. "As you can see, Mr. Thornton, Mrs." Winters gestured broadly. "We do our best with limited resources." That's when he saw her. In the far corner, partially hidden by shadows, sat a small girl with golden brown hair. Unlike the other children, she wasn't participating in the orchestrated play. Instead, she clutched something to her chest to photograph. Jack realized while her other hand touched a mark on her neck that made his heart stop. "Who is that child?" Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper. Mrs. Winters followed his gaze, her expression flickering with something like concern. "Oh, that's Emma. She's rather difficult. Traumatized, you see. Lost her mother in a terrible accident 6 months ago." Jack was already moving toward the corner, drawn by an inexplicable force. Richard tried to intercept him, reminding him about their schedule, but Jack waved him off. The cameras continued clicking, capturing his unexpected deviation from the script. As he approached, Emma looked up, and Jack felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Her eyes, he knew those eyes. They were Sarah's eyes, but with his own determination behind them. And there on her neck was a crescent-shaped birthmark identical to his own. "Hello, Emma," Jack said softly, crouching down to her level. "What do you have there?" Emma studied him with an intensity that belied her young age. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she unfolded the photograph she'd been holding. Jack's world tilted on its axis as he recognized himself 15 years younger, standing next to a smiling Sarah Miller. "You're him," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. "You're the man from the photo, the one Mummy told me about." Before her voice trailed off, but her meaning was clear. Before she died. Before everything changed. Before Emma ended up here alone. Jack couldn't breathe. The implications crashed over him like waves. Sarah's sudden disappearance, the timing, the matching birthmarks, those eyes that were somehow both Sarah's and his own. "Mr. Thornton," Mrs. Winters' sharp voice cut through his revelation. "We should continue the tour. There's much more to see." But Jack couldn't move. Memories flooded back Sarah's last summer with him, her strange reluctance to discuss the future, the way she'd disappeared without explanation. Had she known then? Had she been trying to tell him? "Emma," he managed, his voice hoarse with emotion, "how long have you had this photograph?" Mommy gave it to me. In the car. She said. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She said to find you. She said you're my father. The cameras were still clicking, capturing every moment of this unscripted scene. Richard Walsh's face had gone pale, and Mrs. Winters was making frantic gestures to her staff, but Jack noticed none of it. His entire world had narrowed to this corner, this moment, this child who carried his mark in Sarah's eyes. Mr. Thornton, Richard's urgent voice finally broke through. We need to leave. Now. Jack stood slowly, his legs unsteady. Everything had changed in the space of a few heartbeats. He looked down at Emma, who stared back with a mixture of hope and fear that broke his heart. I'll be back, he promised softly, though protocols and procedures screened against such a commitment. We'll figure this out. As he was led away, Jack could feel Emma's eyes following him, and he knew with absolute certainty that his life would never be the same. The aftermath of Jack's discovery unleashed a storm of institutional resistance. Within hours of his departure from Sunrise Haven, Mrs. Winters had convened an emergency meeting with her staff, their voices carrying through the thin walls of her office as Emma pressed her ear against the door. This is a disaster, Mrs. Winters declared, pacing behind her desk. Do you realize what this could mean for the orphanage? If word gets out that we've had a billionaire's daughter here for 6 months. But the birthmarks, Miss Harrison interjected. And the photograph. Surely we can't ignore. We can, and we will, Mrs. Winters snapped. For all we know, this could be some elaborate scheme. That woman, the mother, could have planned this whole thing. Emma felt tears burning in her eyes but refused to let them fall. She'd learned long ago that crying didn't change anything at Sunrise Haven. Meanwhile, across town, Jack sat in his office staring at his phone. He'd made 17 calls since returning from the orphanage, to his lawyers, to private investigators, to anyone who might help him understand how this had happened. But with each call, the barriers seemed to grow higher. Mr. Thornton, his head lawyer, advised gravely, even if this child is yours, there are procedures. DNA tests, court hearings, background checks. These things take time. Jack's voice rose. She's been alone in that place for 6 months. She's my daughter. Allegedly your daughter, Richard Walsh corrected smoothly, appearing at Jack's office door. Sir, we need to think about this strategically. The media is already sniffing around. One wrong move could damage everything we've built. But Jack wasn't listening. He was looking at an old email on his phone, one he'd never opened from an account he didn't recognize, dated just days before Sarah's accident. The subject line read, I need to tell you the truth. Back at Sunrise Haven, Emma endured a different kind of interrogation. Mrs. Winters had summoned her to the office, where she now sat facing 3 stern-faced adults. Emma, dear Mrs. Winters began, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes cold. We need to talk about what happened today. About the stories you've been telling. They're not stories, Emma protested, clutching the photograph tighter. He's my father, Mummy said. Your mother was very upset after the accident, Miss Harrison cut in. Sometimes people say things that aren't quite true when they're distressed. Emma felt the familiar anger rising in her chest. You're lying. Look at his birthmark, it's just like mine. And he recognized Mummy in the picture. Enough, Mrs. Winters slammed her hand on the desk. This fantasy has gone far enough. Hand over the photograph. Now. No, Emma jumped up, backing toward the door. You can't take it. It's all I have left. The confrontation was interrupted by the arrival of a social worker Emma had never seen before. The woman introduced herself as MS, Chen from Child Protective Services, explaining that concerns had been raised about Emma's situation. We need to ensure everything is handled properly, MS, Chen said, her kind eyes fixed on Emma. Sometimes these situations can be complicated. But Emma wasn't fooled by more adult words meant to confuse and delay. She'd seen the way Jack looked at her, the recognition in his eyes. She'd felt, for the first time since her mother's death, that spark of hope. That night, after being sent to bed without dinner as punishment for her defiance, Emma lay awake listening to the night sounds of the orphanage. Through her window, she could see the lights of the city, wondering which ones belonged to the building where her father worked. "I promised you, Mummy," she whispered to the photograph hidden under her pillow. "I promised I'd find him. And now he's found me, but they won't let us be together." In his penthouse apartment, Jack too lay awake, staring at his phone where dozens of unanswered messages blinked. The latest was from Richard, crisis management team meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. "We need to get ahead of this story." But Jack wasn't thinking about crisis management or stock prices or public relations. He was thinking about a little girl with his birthmark and Sarah's eyes, alone in an orphanage that seemed determined to keep them apart. Both father and daughter, separated by miles but united by blood, made the same decision that night. The system might try to keep them apart, but some bonds were stronger than any institutional barrier. The question was who would make the first move. Emma made her decision at precisely 2:47 a.m., when the night guard dozed off during his rounds. She had spent the hours after lights out methodically preparing, stuffing her few belongings into her school backpack. The photograph of Jack and her mother was safely tucked into her coat pocket, close to her heart. From her bed by the window, she had carefully observed the guard's routine for weeks. 3 minutes between passes, a blind spot behind the old oak tree, and a loose board in the fence that the older kids used to sneak cigarettes. Tonight, all that knowledge would buy her freedom. In the bed next to hers, Lucy stirred. "Emma? What are you doing?" "I have to go," Emma whispered, sliding her feet into her sneakers. "I have to find my dad." Lucy sat up, her eyes wide in the darkness. But Mrs. Winters said, "Mrs. Winters is wrong. I saw him today. He has the same mark as me." He knew my mom. Emma's voice trembled with conviction. "He'll want me if I can just reach him." Meanwhile, across town, Jack was making plans of his own. He sat in his home office, surrounded by legal documents and adoption papers. His phone buzzed again. Richard, probably with more warnings about public perception and shareholder confidence. Mr. Thornton, his lawyer, had advised earlier, rushing this could backfire spectacularly. Let the system work. But Jack had seen something in Emma's eyes today, a loneliness he recognized all too well. The same loneliness that had driven him to build his empire, as if success could fill the void left by meaningful connections. He pulled up an old email from Sarah, one he'd never opened, dated just before her death. His finger hovered over it, then clicked. "Jack. I've made so many mistakes. The biggest was keeping her from you. Our daughter needs her father. I'm coming to tell you everything. Sarah." The email had arrived 3 days before the accident. Back at Sunrise Haven, Emma crept down the hallway, her heart thundering in her chest, past Mrs. Winters' office, where light still shone under the door, past the kitchen, where dishes rattled, the night cook preparing tomorrow's breakfast. Each step could betray her. She reached the back door just as voices approached. Ducking behind a storage cabinet, Emma held her breath as 2 staff members walked by. "Can't believe he showed up here today? Of all places." "Did you see his face when he saw the girl? Like he'd seen a ghost?" "Mrs. Winters is furious. Says she's calling her contacts at social services first thing tomorrow to block any claim he might make." Emma's hands clenched into fists. They were going to keep her from her father, just like they'd tried to take away her photograph, her memories, everything that connected her to her past. Not this time. The night air was cool on her face as she slipped out the door. The old oak's branches provided perfect cover as she made her way to the fence. One board loose, another missing just enough space for a small, determined girl to squeeze through. Freedom. In his penthouse, Jack made his own decision. He couldn't wait for the system, couldn't trust the process that had already failed Emma for 6 months. Tomorrow, he would go back to Sunrise Haven, lawyers and press be damned. He pulled out his phone to text his driver, but a breaking news alert stopped him cold. Breaking tech billionaire Jack Thornton's secret child. Sources claim dramatic scene at local orphanage. His phone immediately lit up with calls board members, shareholders, PR team. But all Jack could think about was Emma, alone in that place, probably scared and confused. At that exact moment, Emma stood on the sidewalk outside Sunrise Haven, her backpack clutched tight, staring at the city lights spread before her like a sea of stars. She pulled out the photograph, studying her father's face in the dim streetlight. "I'm coming, Daddy," she whispered, using the word for the first time. It felt right on her tongue, full of promise and hope. Behind her, an alarm began to sound at the orphanage. They'd discovered her missing. Soon, they would be looking for her. Emma took one last look at the building that had been her prison for 6 months, then turned toward the city. She didn't know exactly where Jack's building was, but she'd seen it in newspapers, the tallest one, with the big T on top. She started walking, her small figure disappearing into the shadows of the sleeping city, while behind her chaos erupted at Sunrise Haven, and across town her father prepared for battle, neither knowing their paths were about to collide in ways neither could imagine. The night held its breath, waiting to see what dawn would bring. Emma's small sneakers made little noise on the wet pavement as she navigated the darkened streets. The city looked different at night, transformed into a maze of shadows and unfamiliar shapes. Every passing car made her heart jump, expecting to see Mrs. Winter's stern face or a police officer ready to take her back. The photo of Jack was her compass, his smiling face giving her courage when fear threatened to overwhelm her. She remembered the way the T on his building had glowed in newspaper photographs, a beacon in the night sky. All she had to do was find it. But the city was bigger than she'd imagined, its streets more confusing. After an hour of walking, her legs ached and hunger gnawed at her stomach. She hadn't thought to bring food, only her treasured photo, a change of clothes, and her mother's small silver locket. A group of rowdy teenagers passed by, forcing Emma to duck into a doorway. Their laughter echoed off the buildings, reminding her of how alone she was. She clutched her backpack tighter, feeling the cold seep through her thin jacket. "Hey, little girl," a raspy voice called from the shadows. "You lost." Emma's blood turned to ice. A man emerged from a dark alley, his smile anything but friendly. She backed away slowly, remembering her mother's warnings about strangers. "Such a pretty little thing," he continued, moving closer. "Where are your parents?" Emma turned and ran, her feet pounding against the pavement. She could hear the man's heavy footsteps behind her, getting closer. Panic gave her speed she didn't know she possessed. Left, right, through a narrow passage between buildings, Emma ran blindly, her lungs burning. The footsteps faded, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. When she finally paused to catch her breath, she realized with horror that she was completely lost. The streets here were darker, dirtier. Broken windows stared down at her like empty eyes. A cat yowled somewhere nearby, making her jump. Emma pulled out the photo again, tears blurring her vision. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered. "I don't know where to go." Meanwhile, across town, Jack was living his own nightmare. The news of Emma's disappearance had reached him through Richard, who seemed more concerned about the potential PR disaster than the missing child. "The police are already involved," Richard reported, his voice clinical. "It's only a matter of time before they connect her disappearance to your visit today. We need to distance ourselves." "Distance ourselves," Jack exploded, throwing his phone against the wall. "She's my daughter." Allegedly, Richard corrected smoothly. And right now she's a liability. Think about the shareholders. Get out, Jack's voice was deadly quiet. Get out of my office before I do something we'll both regret. As soon as Richard left, Jack grabbed his car keys. To hell with protocol. To hell with PR. To hell with everything except finding his daughter. He would search every street himself if he had to. The city streets were a blur as Jack drove, his eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. Where would a scared 6-year-old go? What would she be looking for? His building, he realized suddenly. The Thornton Tower was visible from miles around would Emma try to find it. He changed direction, heading toward the industrial district, where abandoned warehouses created a maze of dangerous streets. From there, the tower would be visible, but the path to it was treacherous. Rain began to fall, light at first, then heavier. Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Somewhere out there, Emma was alone, probably cold and scared. The thought was unbearable. His phone rang the police, asking for a statement about his connection to the missing child. Jack ignored it. Another call, Mrs. Winters, probably with more excuses and bureaucratic nonsense. Ignored. A figure darted across the street ahead, small, fast, terrified. Jack's heart leapt, but it was just a stray cat. Still, he slowed down, peering into every alley, every doorway. "Hold on, Emma," he whispered to the empty car. "Daddy's coming." The word felt strange on his tongue, but right in his heart. 15 years of lost time, of not knowing, of empty success, none of it mattered now. All that mattered was finding her. Lightning flashed, illuminating the streets in stark white. In that brief moment, Jack caught a glimpse of something that made his blood run cold, a small backpack, abandoned on a corner, soaking in the rain. He slammed on the brakes, tires screeching on the wet pavement. The backpack was pink, with a teddy bear keychain exactly like the one Emma had been carrying at the orphanage. But Emma was nowhere in sight. The rain fell harder as Jack stepped out of his car, his expensive suit immediately soaked. He picked up the backpack, his hands trembling. Inside, he found a change of clothes and a small silver locket. Somewhere in the darkness, a scream pierced the night high, young, terrified. Emma's scream. The scream echoed off the wet buildings, sending Jack's heart into overdrive. He sprinted toward the sound, the backpack still clutched in his hand, rain pelting his face. The industrial district was a maze of abandoned warehouses and blind alleys, each corner potentially hiding his daughter or her attackers. "Emma," his voice boomed through the darkness. "Emma." Another scream, closer this time, followed by the sound of running feet. Jack rounded a corner just in time to see two figures disappear into an old warehouse, one large, one terrifyingly small. Without hesitation, he charged after them. The warehouse interior was pitch black, the rain drumming on the metal roof, creating an eerie percussion. Jack's expensive shoes slipped on the wet concrete as he fumbled for his phone's flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing fallen beams and rusted machinery. "Let me go," Emma's voice echoed from above. "Please. I just want to find my daddy." Jack's blood turned to ice. She was up there somewhere in the darkness with someone who meant her harm. He swept the flashlight beam across the upper level, catching glimpses of a metal catwalk. "Your daddy?" a man's voice sneered. "You mean the rich man from the news? Think he wants a dirty little orphan?" "He's my real daddy. Look at the picture, we have the same mark." Jack moved toward the stairs, trying to stay quiet despite his racing heart. The metal steps creaked under his weight, each sound seeming to echo through the entire building. "Shut up," the man's voice grew harder. "That photo's worth something now. And you. Well, rich men pay a lot to get their secrets back." The implications of those words sent rage coursing through Jack's veins. He reached the catwalk, his flashlight beam finding them at last. Emma was backed against a railing, her clothes soaked, her face tear-stained but defiant. But a large man in a dirty jacket was reaching for her, his intentions clear in his cruel smile. "Get away from my daughter," Jack's voice was thunder in the darkness. The man spun around, startled. Emma's face lit up with recognition and hope. "Daddy!" Well, the man recovered quickly, moving to grab Emma. "Looks like Daddy came to pay after all." "Don't touch her," Jack advanced slowly, his mind racing through options. The catwalk was narrow, rusted. One wrong move could send any of them plummeting to the concrete below. Or what? The man laughed. "You'll call your lawyers? Your security team?" He pulled Emma roughly against him, making her cry out in pain. "This little girl's worth a lot to you, isn't she? Let's talk numbers." Jack's hand tightened around Emma's backpack. In the beam of his flashlight, he could see his birthmark standing out against her pale neck. 15 years of lost time, of not knowing, of empty success. All leading to this moment. "You want money?" Jack's voice was deadly calm. "Let her go, and we'll talk." "Daddy?" No, Emma struggled against her captor. "He's bad. He wants to hurt." The man clamped his hand over her mouth, but not before Emma managed to sink her teeth into his flesh. He cursed, loosening his grip just enough for her to slip free. Everything happened in seconds after that. Emma ran toward Jack. The man lunged for her. The rusted catwalk groaned under the sudden movement. Jack saw the metal beginning to give way under the man's feet. "Emma, run!" Jack dropped the backpack and dove forward, catching his daughter just as the catwalk collapsed. The man's scream was cut short by the sound of metal crashing onto concrete below. Jack held Emma tight against his chest, both of them trembling on the stable portion of the walkway. Her small arms wrapped around his neck, her tears hot against his skin. "I found you," she whispered. "I promised Mommy I'd find you." "I'm here, baby," Jack's voice broke. "I'm here now. No one's going to hurt you ever again." Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have heard the commotion. Soon the warehouse would be swarming with police, paramedics, reporters. Questions would be asked. Statements would be needed. But for now, in the darkness of the broken warehouse, father and daughter clung to each other, making up for 15 years of lost embraces in a single moment. Emma pulled back slightly, touching Jack's birthmark with wonder. "I knew it was real. I knew you'd want me." Always, Jack promised, his heart so full it hurt. "I'm so sorry I didn't know. I'm so sorry it took me so long to find you." The rain continued to fall through the holes in the warehouse roof, but neither of them noticed. They had found each other at last, though their journey was far from over. And somewhere in the darkness below, a photograph lay in a puddle, a younger Jack and Sarah smiling up at the future they never got to share. Red and blue lights painted the warehouse walls as police and paramedics swarmed the scene. Jack sat in the back of an ambulance, refusing to let go of Emma as a medic checked them both for injuries. Emma had stopped crying but maintained a death grip on her father's shirt, as if afraid he might disappear. Mr. Thornton, a detective, approached, notebook in hand. "We need to ask you both some questions about what happened here tonight." Before Jack could respond, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Mr. Thornton will not be answering any questions without legal representation." Richard Walsh strode through the crowd, followed by Mrs. Winters and two stern-faced social workers. "The child needs to return to the facility immediately," Mrs. Winters declared, reaching for Emma. "This entire situation is highly irregular." Emma whimpered, burrowing deeper into Jack's embrace. "No, please don't make me go back." "She's not going anywhere." Jack's voice was steel. "She's my daughter, and she's staying with me." That remains to be proven, one of the social workers interjected, without proper documentation and DNA verification. Look at them, the young paramedic who had been treating Emma suddenly spoke up. They have identical birthmarks. What more proof do you need? Indeed, under the harsh emergency lights, the matching crescent shapes on their necks were unmistakable. But Mrs. Winters wasn't finished. Regardless of any physical similarities, there are procedures. The child ran away. She was endangered. Mr. Thornton's involvement is highly suspicious. Suspicious Jack stood, Emma still in his arms. I saved her from a kidnapper who was planning to use her for extortion. Where was your security when she walked out of your facility? Where was your care when she felt so desperate she had to run away? The detective cleared his throat. About that kidnapper, we found him. He's alive, but badly injured. And he's saying some very interesting things about receiving inside information about the girl's connection to you. All eyes turned to Richard Walsh, who had suddenly gone very pale. Emma pointed at him, her voice small but clear. He was at the orphanage before. I saw him looking at my photo of Mummy and Daddy. The pieces clicked into place in Jack's mind. The email from Sarah. You monitored my accounts. You knew about Emma all along. Richard's composure cracked. I was protecting you. A secret child would have destroyed everything we built. When she showed up at that orphanage, I had to act. Two police officers stepped forward, cutting off Richard's confession. As they led him away in handcuffs, Mrs. Winters sputtered protestations about protocols and procedures. Enough. Jack's voice silenced everyone. I'm taking my daughter home. Your lawyers can talk to my lawyers tomorrow. Tonight, Emma needs rest, safety, and her father. The senior detective nodded slowly. We'll need statements tomorrow, but given the circumstances, he handed Jack his card. Take care of your girl, Mr. Thornton. We'll sort out the rest later. As they walked to Jack's car, Emma still clinging to him, she suddenly remembered that something. Daddy, the photo of you and Mummy, I dropped it in the warehouse. We'll find it, sweetheart, Jack promised, though his heart ached at the thought of losing that last connection to Sarah. But Emma shook her head, reaching into her sock of all places. I put it here when the bad man tried to take my backpack, she explained, pulling out the wrinkled but intact photograph. Mummy always said it was my most important treasure. Jack stared at the image of his younger self with Sarah, both of them smiling, unaware of how their lives would unfold. Your mother was very wise, he managed, his voice thick with emotion. As they drove home through the now quiet streets, Emma finally allowed her exhaustion to show, her head drooping against Jack's shoulder. But she fought sleep, her small hand repeatedly touching his birthmark, as if to reassure herself this was real. Daddy, she murmured, half asleep, are you really keeping me forever? Jack kissed her forehead, his heart so full it felt like it might burst. Forever and ever, princess. We have so much time to make up for. By the time they reached his penthouse, Emma was finally asleep. Jack carried her inside, past his pristine furniture and expensive art, into the guest room that would soon become hers. As he tucked her in, her small hand still clutching his shirt, he made a silent promise to Sarah. I'll protect her with my life. I'll give her all the love we should have shared as a family. I'll make sure she knows how much her mother loved her. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving behind a sky beginning to lighten with dawn. A new day was coming, the first of many for this father and daughter who had found each other against all odds. But the real challenges were just beginning. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows as Emma woke in her new room, momentarily disoriented by the soft sheets and unfamiliar luxury. For a terrifying moment, she thought last night had been a dream until she heard Jack's voice in the hallway. I don't care about the board meeting. Cancel everything for the week of pause. Because my daughter needs me, that's why. Emma slipped out of bed, still wearing her clothes from yesterday. She padded to the doorway, peeking out to see Jack pacing the hallway, phone to his ear, his usual pristine suit replaced by casual clothes. The DNA results. Rush them. I want them today. Another pause. Yes, I understand it usually takes longer. Money isn't an issue. He turned, catching sight of Emma. His whole demeanor softened instantly. I have to go. My daughter's awake. The tenderness in his voice when he said my daughter made Emma's heart swell. Good morning, Princess. Jack smiled, crouching down to her level. How did you sleep? Instead of answering, Emma threw herself into his arms, needing to confirm he was real, that this wasn't another orphanage dream. Jack held her tight, seeming to understand. I'm here, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere. Their moment was interrupted by a knock at the door. Jack tensed, but it was only his housekeeper, Maria, arriving with breakfast. Her eyes widened at the sight of Emma. Mr. Thornton, I didn't know you had, the news said, but I didn't. Maria, meet Emma, my daughter, Jack said proudly. Emma, this is Maria. She's been taking care of this place and me for years. Emma shyly studied the older woman, who stared back with undisguised curiosity at their matching birthmarks. Then Maria's face broke into a warm smile. Dios mio, she has your eyes, Mr. Thornton. And Miss Sarah's smile, she bustled forward with a motherly air. You must be hungry, Pequena. Come, I'll make you proper breakfast, not this cold toast your father thinks is food. The morning unfolded in a surreal blend of normalcy and newness. Maria made pancakes, fussing over how thin Emma was. Jack sat at the kitchen counter, fielding endless phone calls but never taking his eyes off his daughter. Emma was halfway through her second pancake when the TV in the corner caught her attention. Her own face stared back from the screen alongside Jack's. Breaking news about tech billionaire Jack Thornton's alleged daughter. Sources say the child ran away from Sunrise Haven Orphanage last night and was involved in a dangerous confrontation. Questions are being raised about Thornton's sudden appearance in her life. Jack quickly turned off the TV, but Emma had already gone pale. Are they going to make me go back? Never, Jack said firmly, pulling her close. You're my daughter, and I'm going to prove it. Then no one can separate us. The elevator chimed, announcing visitors. Jack's security team had already stopped 3 reporters from trying to sneak into the building. But it was Jack's lawyer, David Chen, carrying a briefcase and wearing a grave expression. Jack, we need to talk. Sunrise Haven is filing for emergency custody. They're claiming parental kidnapping. Emma's fork clattered to the plate. No, Daddy, please don't let them. Sheesh, Princess Jack soothed, though his jaw was tight with anger. Mr. Chen is here to help us. He's going to make sure you stay right here where you belong. David spread papers across the counter, careful to avoid the syrup. The DNA results should be in this afternoon. Once we have those, we can file for emergency custody ourselves. But Jack, there's something else. He pulled out a thick file. I did some digging into Richard Walsh's activities over the past 6 months. He didn't just know about Emma, he actively worked to keep her existence hidden. There are emails, money transfers to Sunrise Haven staff. That man, Emma suddenly spoke up, her voice small. The one who tried to take me last night. He said someone told him about me, about the photo. He knew things. Jack's face darkened with fury, but he kept his voice gentle for Emma's sake. David, I want everything. Every email, every phone call, every cent Richard moved. He didn't act alone. Already on it, David nodded. But Jack, the press is going wild with this. Your board is calling for an emergency meeting. Some shareholders are threatening to sell. Let them, Jack said dismissively. I have more important things to worry about now. He looked at Emma, who was trying to appear brave despite her trembling lower lip. In that moment, Jack made a decision that would change both their lives forever. David, draft a press release. I want to hold a conference this afternoon. After the DNA results come in, it's time to tell our story, the whole story. Are you sure? David asked carefully. once you go public like that. I'm done hiding, Jack declared. My daughter spent 6 months alone in that orphanage because of secrets and lies. No more. Emma slipped her small hand into his larger one. Can I come too, Daddy? To the press thing? Jack hesitated, protective instincts warring with pride in her courage. There will be lots of people, lots of cameras. I'm not scared, Emma lifted her chin. Not when I'm with you. Maria, who had been quietly listening while preparing more pancakes, wiped tears from her eyes. She is your daughter, Mr. Thornton. Same stubborn heart. As if to prove the point, Emma touched her birthmark, then Jack's their unique connection, now a symbol of defiance against those who would separate them. The sun climbed higher over the city, promising a day of battles ahead, but father and daughter would face them together, their bond growing stronger with each passing hour. They didn't know it yet, but the biggest revelations were still to come. The DNA results arrived just before noon, though Jack hardly needed the official confirmation. Every look, every gesture from Emma echoed either himself or Sarah so perfectly that biology seemed obvious. Still, watching the lab technician confirm a 99.9% match brought tears to his eyes. Congratulations, Mr. Thornton, the technician smiled. She's definitely your daughter. Emma, who had insisted on being present, beamed with vindication. See? I told Mrs. Winters I wasn't making things up. But their celebration was interrupted by David bursting into the room, his face grave. Jack, we have a problem. A big one. He handed over his tablet, displaying emails recovered from Richard Walsh's private server. As Jack read, his face went from confused to thunderous. Son of a... He caught himself, glancing at Emma. Princess, could you wait outside with Maria for a moment? Emma looked ready to protest, but saw something in her father's expression that made her nod. Once she left, Jack turned to David. Richard knew. Not just about Emma, he knew about Sarah's accident. These emails. He had someone watching her. He knew she was coming to tell me about Emma. David nodded grimly. There's more. The brake lines on Sarah's car? They weren't just worn out, they were tampered with. Jack felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Are you saying? Richard didn't just hide Emma's existence. He may have been responsible for Sarah's death. The revelation hit Jack like a physical blow. All these years, he'd trusted Richard, made him his right-hand man. While all along, a small sound made both men turn. Emma stood in the doorway, her face pale. She'd heard everything. Emma, sweetheart, Jack started, but Emma was already running. He caught her in the hallway, pulling her into his arms as she sobbed. He killed my mummy? He killed her because of me? No, baby. No, Jack held her tight, his own tears falling. Never because of you. Your mother loved you so much. She was so brave, trying to tell me the truth. Emma's small body shook with grief. I remember that night in the car. Mummy was so excited. She kept saying we were going to be a real family at last. Jack's heart shattered all over again. Sarah had finally found the courage to tell him, to make things right, and Richard had murdered her for it. David approached cautiously. Jack, the police are on their way to arrest Richard, but we found something else in his files, something about Sarah's brother Michael. Uncle Mike Emma looked up, sniffling. Mommy said he was away. He was in prison, David explained gently, released 6 months ago. According to these emails, Richard hired him to keep tabs on Emma at the orphanage. He was supposed to make sure she never connected with Jack. The man from last night, Emma whispered. The one who tried to take me. He knew things about Mummy. Jack's blood ran cold as the pieces clicked into place. Michael Miller had been the kidnapper, Sarah's own brother, working with Richard to keep Emma's existence hidden. Why, Emma asked, her voice small. Why did they want to keep us apart? Jack wished he had a simple answer, but the truth was ugly. Money, power, control. Richard knew that if I found out about you, everything would change. The company, my priorities. He couldn't control me if I had something more important in my life. Emma touched her birthmark uncertainly. You, Jack confirmed, kissing her forehead. You're more important than all the companies, all the money in the world. David cleared his throat. Jack, the press conference is in an hour. With these revelations, we tell everything Jack decided. The whole truth. Emma deserves that much. The world needs to know what really happened to Sarah. Emma straightened in his arms, wiping her eyes. Can I talk too? About Mummy. Jack studied his daughter's face, so young, yet so determined. Are you sure, Princess? There will be lots of people, cameras? Mummy always said the truth is important, Emma declared, even when it's scary, even when it hurts. In that moment, Jack saw Sarah in their daughter so clearly it took his breath away. The same quiet strength, the same unwavering moral compass. Okay, he agreed softly. We'll tell our story together. As they prepared for the press conference, Emma clutched both the DNA results and her precious photograph. These pieces of paper proved what she'd known in her heart all along: she belonged with her father. But somewhere in the city, in a police interrogation room, Richard Walsh was already spinning his own version of events, and in another part of town, Michael Miller was being treated for his injuries, harboring secrets that could still tear their newfound family apart. The truth was finally emerging from its long burial, but like any excavation, it would leave scars in its wake. Emma slipped her hand into Jack's as they watched the elevator numbers climb toward the conference floor. Daddy. Yes, Princess. No matter what happens, you won't let them separate us again, right? Jack squeezed her small hand, thinking of all the forces that had kept them apart for so long. Never again, Emma. We're a family now, forever. The elevator doors opened to a sea of cameras and microphones. Father and daughter stepped out together, ready to face whatever came next, their matching birthmarks a testament to a bond that not even death could sever. The press conference room hummed with tension as Jack and Emma took their places at the podium. Cameras flashed like lightning, reporters jostled for position, and somewhere in the back, Mrs. Winters sat with her legal team, their faces tight with concern. Jack adjusted the microphone, then lifted Emma onto a chair so she could be seen. Her small hand remained firmly in his as he began to speak. 15 years ago, I lost the love of my life when Sarah Miller disappeared from my life without explanation. 6 months ago, I lost her again when she died in what we now know was no accident. But through all this tragedy, a miracle emerged: my daughter, Emma. The room erupted with questions, but Jack raised his hand for silence. Today, we're here to tell you the whole truth. About Sarah's death, about the conspiracy to keep me from my daughter, and about the people who tried to destroy our family. Emma stepped forward, her voice clear despite her trembling hands. My mummy tried to tell him about me. She wanted us to be a family. But bad people stopped her. They hurt her because she wanted to tell the truth. A hush fell over the room as Emma continued, holding up the photograph that had started it all. This picture helped me find my daddy. See our matching mark? She touched her birthmark, then Jack's. Mummy said it was a sign we'd find each other. Reporters scribbled frantically as Jack revealed the evidence they'd uncovered: Richard Walsh's emails, the tampering with Sarah's car, the connection to Michael Miller. With each revelation, Mrs. Winters sank lower in her seat, her face ashen. Mrs. Winters, Jack addressed her directly, his voice hard. Did you know? When Richard Walsh paid your staff to keep Emma isolated, to hide her from me? Did you know what they'd done to her mother?" The orphanage director stood, shaking. "Mr. Thornton, I only knew we were supposed to discourage any connection between you and Emma. The payments were called administrative support. I never questioned." "You never questioned why a 6-year-old child was being treated like a prisoner?" Jack's voice cracked with emotion. "Why she was punished for talking about her father?" Emma spoke up again, surprising everyone. "Some people were nice to me there. Miss Chen always gave me extra food. And Lucy, my friend, she helped me keep Mummy's picture safe when they tried to take it away." A reporter raised her hand. "Emma, weren't you scared last night, running away alone?" "Yes," Emma admitted. "But Mummy always said being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what's right anyway." She looked up at Jack. "I knew Daddy would find me. I just had to be brave enough to find him first." The questions continued, but were interrupted by a commotion at the back of the room. Police officers were leading in a handcuffed Richard Walsh, who had demanded to make a statement before being formally charged. "You want the truth?" Richard's face was contorted with bitterness. "Here's your truth. Sarah Miller was going to ruin everything we'd built. A secret child? A scandalous affair? Our stock would have plummeted. I protected this company. You killed my mummy." Emma's cry cut through his ranting like a knife. "You're a monster." Richard's face twisted into an ugly sneer. "Your precious mummy wasn't so innocent. Ask your Uncle Michael about the money she took, about the real reason she kept you hidden all those years. Ask him about." 2 officers dragged him away before he could finish, but his words had left a new tension in the room. Jack pulled Emma close, shielding her from the renewed frenzy of questions. David stepped forward, addressing the press. "We have no further comments at this time. The police investigation is ongoing, and we ask for privacy as this family heals from these revelations." As they left the podium, reporters shouting questions behind them, Emma tugged on Jack's sleeve. "Daddy, what did he mean about Uncle Mike and Mummy?" Jack crouched down to her level, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes, Princess, the truth comes in pieces. We might not have all the pieces yet, but we'll face them together when they come." In the elevator heading back to Jack's office, Emma leaned against him, exhausted. "Are you mad at Mummy for not telling you about me before?" Jack's heart clenched. "No, sweetheart. Your mother must have had her reasons. And look at how brave and strong she raised you to be." But Richard's parting words nagged at him. What secrets had Sarah taken to her grave? What was Michael Miller's real role in all of this? The answers would come soon enough, some welcome, others devastating. But for now, Jack focused on the weight of his daughter in his arms, the miracle of having found her against all odds. As the elevator climbed, Emma pulled out her mother's photograph once more. "Daddy, can we put this somewhere special, so Mummy can watch over us?" "Of course, Princess." Jack kissed her forehead, blinking back tears. "She's always watching over us. She led us back to each other." But the truth had begun to emerge, but like a stone cast into still water, its ripples would continue to spread, touching lives and revealing secrets that had long remained hidden in the depths. The truth about Michael Miller emerged 3 days after the press conference, in a way no one could have predicted. Jack was in his home office, reviewing security arrangements for Emma's protection, when David burst in without knocking. Turn on the news, now. On every channel, Michael Miller's bruised face filled the screen. He'd called a press conference from his hospital room against his lawyer's advice. Sarah wasn't just trying to tell Jack about Emma that night. Michael's voice trembled. She was going to expose everything. The embezzlement, the offshore accounts, all of it. Richard Walsh had been stealing from Thornton Industries for years, and my sister found the proof. Emma, who had been coloring nearby, dropped her crayon. "Daddy." Jack pulled her onto his lap, both of them transfixed by Michael's confession. "Richard approached me 6 months ago, right after I got out of prison. He knew about my history with fraud. Offered me a deal, keep Emma away from Jack, and he'd make my record disappear. I was supposed to watch her at the orphanage, make sure she never got adopted. Tears streamed down Michael's face. But I didn't know. I swear I didn't know he'd killed Sarah. When I figured it out, I tried to back out. That's when he threatened Emma. The accident, Emma whispered. When Mummy was taking me to see you. Sarah had evidence, Michael continued on screen. Documents, recordings, everything needed to prove Walsh had stolen millions. She kept it all in a safety deposit box. The key, he paused, looking directly into the camera. Emma, honey, the key is in your mother's locket, the one she always wore. She wanted you to have it, to keep it safe, until you found your father. Jack's blood ran cold. The locket, Emma's most precious possession, had disappeared during her escape through the city. My locket, Emma cried. The bad man, he grabbed my backpack, and it fell. We have to find it, Daddy. Before Jack could respond, David's phone rang. His face went pale as he listened. Jack, Walsh escaped custody 20 minutes ago. They think he heard about Michael's confession and... The crash from the living room cut him off. Jack barely had time to push Emma behind his desk before the office door burst open. Richard Walsh stood there, wild-eyed, holding a gun. His expensive suit was torn, his carefully maintained facade shattered. "Where's the locket?" he demanded. "Where's the key?" Richard, Jack said calmly, though his heart hammered. "Think about what you're doing. The police are already." "Shut up," Richard's hand shook. 15 years of perfect plans, ruined by that brat and her interfering mother. All Sarah had to do was stay away, take the money I offered her. But no, she had to play hero. Emma whimpered behind the desk. The sound drew Richard's crazed gaze. "Come out, little girl. Tell Uncle Richard where Mummy's locket is." "Don't you dare speak to her," Jack growled, shifting to block Richard's view. Still protecting her, Richard laughed bitterly. "You don't even know the whole truth about Sarah, about what she did." "I know she died protecting our daughter," Jack interrupted. "I know she was braver than you'll ever be." Richard's face contorted. "Brave?" "She was a thief. She stole company documents, threatened to expose everything I'd built." "Everything you stole," David corrected, edging toward the alarm panel. "Stay where you are." Richard swung the gun toward David. "Nobody moves until I get that key." Emma's small voice came from behind the desk. "I know where it is." "Emma?" "No," Jack started, but she was already standing, her chin raised defiantly. "Mummy told me where she hid it. Before the accident." Richard lowered the gun slightly. "Tell me." "Emma, don't." Jack's protest was cut off by Richard pressing the gun to his head. "Tell me now, or Daddy joins Mummy." Emma's lower lip trembled, but her voice stayed steady. "It's in her grave," Mummy said. "She said if anything happened to her, to look in the silver box buried with her." Richard's triumphant smile froze. "You're lying." "I'm not." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "She made me promise. She said only someone who really loved her would go there to find it." The words hung in the air, a challenge and an accusation. Richard's hand shook violently. "You're just like her," he spat. "Both of you, thinking you're so clever. Fine, we'll all take a little trip to the cemetery. One big happy family." "She's 6 years old," Jack pleaded. "Let her stay with David. I'll go with you." "She comes." Richard's voice was ice. "Insurance. Now move, both of you. And don't try anything heroic, Jack. Your daughter's already lost one parent." As they were marched toward the elevator at gunpoint, Emma slipped her hand into Jack's. Her palm was sweaty, but her grip was firm. "It's okay, Daddy," she whispered. "I'm being brave like Mummy." Jack squeezed her hand, his mind racing for a way out. They had to reach the police, had to stop Richard before he discovered Emma's lie. Because Jack knew there was no silver box, no key hidden in Sarah's grave. Whatever evidence she'd had, whatever secrets still waited to be revealed, would have to wait. Right now, all that mattered was keeping Emma safe. The elevator doors closed on their reflection, a disheveled businessman, a desperate criminal, and a small girl with a birthmark like her father's, heading toward a confrontation that would change everything. None of them noticed David's hand slip into his pocket, pressing a silent alarm that would bring help racing to Sarah Miller's grave. But would it arrive in time? The cemetery was eerily quiet in the gathering dusk. Sarah Miller's grave lay at the far end, beneath an old oak tree. Jack had visited only once before, when he'd first learned of her death, but Emma clearly knew the way. "Here, Mummy," she whispered as they approached the headstone. "I brought Daddy, just like I promised." Richard shoved them forward roughly. Enough sentimentality. Where's this silver box supposed to be? Emma pointed to the fresh flowers someone had placed on the grave. "Under there. Mummy said only people who visited her would find it." "Move the flowers," Richard ordered Jack. "Carefully." As Jack knelt by the grave, his fingers brushed the engraved letters of Sarah's name. A memory flashed: Sarah laughing in the summer sun, touching her neck where a silver locket used to hang. The locket that now lay somewhere in the city's darkest streets. "There's nothing here," Jack said, moving the flowers. "Richard, this is insane." Dig Richard thrust a small folding shovel at him. "And remember, one wrong move," he gestured meaningfully toward Emma with the gun. Jack's hands shook as he broke the earth of Sarah's grave. Every instinct screamed against this desecration, but Emma's life hung in the balance. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Emma stood perfectly still, her eyes fixed on something behind Richard. When she spoke, her voice was oddly calm. "Mummy said you were afraid." Richard's grip on the gun tightened. "Shut up. She wrote about you in her diary, about how you begged her not to tell when she found out what you did." I said, "Shut up." Richard's voice rose hysterically. "She kept the real evidence somewhere else," Emma continued. "The silver box was just to trick bad people. Like you." Jack paused in his digging, realizing what his daughter was doing. She was buying time, playing on Richard's paranoia. "You're lying," Richard snarled. "Your mother was nothing but a nosy secretary who didn't know when to mind her own business." "She was smarter than you." Emma's chin lifted defiantly. "She knew you'd hurt her. That's why she gave the real proof to someone else." Richard's face contorted with rage. He grabbed Emma's arm, yanking her closer. "Tell me who. Tell me now." "Let her go." Jack lunged forward, but froze as Richard pressed the gun to Emma's temple. "One more step and she dies. Now tell me, you little brat, who has the evidence." Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "The person standing right behind you." Richard spun around, gun swinging wildly, and found no one there. In that split second of distraction, several things happened at once. Emma stomped hard on Richard's foot, just as Jack taught her in their self-defense lessons. Jack tackled Richard from the side, and the gun went flying. Emma dove for cover behind Sarah's headstone. "Run!" Emma, Jack shouted, grappling with Richard on the sacred ground. "Run!" But Emma didn't run. Instead, she scrambled toward the fallen gun, her small hands closing around it just as Richard threw Jack off and lunged for her. "Give me that, you little..." "Don't touch my daughter!" Jack's roar echoed through the cemetery as he threw himself between them. The gun went off. For a moment, everything froze. Jack felt a burning sensation in his shoulder, heard Emma's terrified scream, saw Richard's triumphant grin. Then police sirens pierced the evening air. Red and blue lights flooded the cemetery. No Richard grabbed for Emma again, but she was already running not away but toward the approaching police cars, the gun clutched safely in her small hands. "Daddy's hurt," she screamed. "Help! The bad man hurt my daddy." Richard turned to flee, but Jack, despite his wound, managed to tackle him one last time. They rolled across Sarah's grave, blood staining the fresh earth. "This is for Sarah," Jack growled, landing a solid punch. "And this is for Emma." Police officers swarmed the scene, pulling Richard away in handcuffs as paramedics rushed to Jack's side. Through the chaos, Emma broke free of the officer holding her and ran to her father. "Daddy, there's so much blood." "I'm okay," Princess Jack managed, though his vision was starting to blur. "You were so brave, just like your mother." As the paramedics worked to stabilize him, Jack kept his eyes fixed on Emma. She stood straight and tall beside Sarah's grave, one hand on the headstone, as if drawing strength from her mother's presence. "I'm sorry we messed up your flowers, Mummy," she whispered. "But we caught the bad man. He can't hurt anyone anymore." The last thing Jack saw before losing consciousness was Emma's birthmark, his birthmark glowing faintly in the emergency lights, a symbol of the unbreakable bond that had brought them to this moment. Richard's desperate laughter echoed from the police car. "You still don't know the whole truth. Sarah's secrets died with her." But looking at his daughter's determined face, Jack realized it didn't matter. Whatever secrets lay buried with Sarah, whatever truths remained hidden, the most important truth was right here. They were a family. They had found each other. They had won. As the ambulance doors closed, Emma's small hand slipped into his uninjured one. "Don't worry, Daddy. I'm not letting go ever again." Neither of them noticed the small silver glint beneath the disturbed earth of Sarah's grave, a final secret waiting to be discovered. At the hospital, as doctors worked to remove the bullet from Jack's shoulder, Emma refused to leave his side. She sat in a chair by his bed, her small face set with determination that was pure Sarah. "The police found something, Daddy," she said when he finally regained consciousness. "At Mummy's grave." David stood in the doorway, holding a small, mud-stained object. Even through his pain-clouded vision, Jack recognized Sarah's silver locket. "It must have fallen during the struggle," David explained. "The catch is broken, but—" Emma carefully took the locket, her fingers working at the damaged clasp until it popped open. Inside was not a key, but a tiny microsed card. "Mummy was clever," Emma said proudly. "She knew the bad men would look for papers, not this." David quickly inserted the card into his tablet. Files appeared, hundreds of them. Financial records, emails, photographs, voice recordings. Sarah had documented everything. She was building a case, David breathed, scrolling through the evidence. Not just against Richard. This goes higher. Board members, executives. But Jack wasn't listening to David. He was staring at a video file dated the day before Sarah's death. With trembling fingers, he pressed play. Sarah's face filled the screen, as beautiful as he remembered. "Jack, if you're watching this, something has happened to me. First, I need you to know how sorry I am. Sorry for leaving, sorry for keeping Emma from you. I thought I was protecting both of you, but I was wrong." Emma climbed onto the hospital bed, curling into Jack's uninjured side as they watched. "When I discovered the fraud," Sarah continued, "Richard threatened to destroy you if I came forward. He had fabricated evidence to frame you for everything. I couldn't let that happen. So I ran, planning to gather proof of your innocence. Then I discovered I was pregnant." Tears streamed down Sarah's recorded face. "Emma is so much like you, Jack. She has your determination, your sense of justice. And that birthmark, I knew from the moment I saw it that she was meant to find you someday. I dream about that sometimes, Emma whispered. About you and Mummy being together again. On screen, Sarah wiped her eyes. I'm coming to tell you everything tonight. Richard doesn't know I've gathered all this evidence. Emma and I are finally coming home, Jack. I just pray we make it in time. The video ended. Jack held Emma tighter, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. She was so close, he murmured. So close to bringing us all together. She did bring us together, Daddy. Emma touched his birthmark gently. Just not the way she planned. David cleared his throat. Jack, there's more. Sarah didn't just document the fraud, she was working with the FBI. There's an agent's card in here. A commotion in the hallway interrupted him. 2 FBI agents entered, followed by Michael Miller in handcuffs. I need to tell them, Sarah, Michael said to the empty air. I need to tell them everything. Emma shrank against Jack as her uncle was led to a chair, but Michael's face held only remorse. I knew about the brake lines, he confessed. Richard told me after, bragged about it. Said Sarah should have kept her nose out of his business. I wanted to come forward, but he threatened Emma, said she'd have an accident too. You could have protected her. Jack's voice was hard. You could have brought her to me. Michael hung his head. I'm not brave like Sarah was, but she knew Richard would try again. That's why she made sure Emma had that photo, made sure she knew about you. She believed love would find a way. The FBI agents confirmed Michael's story. With his testimony and Sarah's evidence, the entire conspiracy would be exposed. Richard and his co-conspirators would never see freedom again. But none of that mattered to Jack as much as the small girl curled against him, her breathing steady as she finally succumbed to exhaustion. Mr. Thornton, one agent said softly, Sarah Miller was a hero. She saved your company, protected your daughter, and ultimately brought down a criminal enterprise. Her final recording. Would you like to hear it? Jack looked at Emma's sleeping face, so peaceful despite everything she'd endured. Not now. Let her rest. We have time. Because that was Sarah's final gift to them, time. Time to heal, time to build the family she'd dreamed of, time to honor her memory by living the life she'd sacrificed everything to protect. As night fell over the hospital, Jack watched his daughter sleep. The matching birthmarks on their necks seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, a sign, Sarah had called it. A sign that love would find a way. Thank you, Sarah, Jack whispered to the quiet room. For her. For everything. And somewhere, perhaps, Sarah smiled, knowing that her greatest treasure, the love between a father and daughter, was finally safe in each other's keeping. But even as peace settled over the hospital room, one final secret remained in Sarah's files, waiting to change their lives one last time. The morning Jack was released from the hospital, Emma insisted on visiting Sarah's grave again. The police had restored the disturbed earth, and fresh flowers covered any sign of the violent confrontation that had occurred there. Can I have a minute alone with Mummy? Emma asked, clutching a small bouquet of daisies, Sarah's favorites Jack had told her. Jack nodded, watching from a respectful distance as his daughter knelt by the headstone. Emma's lips moved in quiet conversation, and Jack felt his heart constrict, thinking of all the moments like this that should have been shared as a family. I told her about you getting hurt, Emma said when she returned, slipping her hand into his, and about being brave like she taught me. They were heading back to the car when David called. His voice was strained. Jack, you need to see this. One of Sarah's files. It's about Emma's birth. What about it? Jack felt a chill despite the warm morning. Just come to the office. Bring Emma. At Thornton Tower, David waited with a thick folder and a troubled expression. I've been going through everything on Sarah's memory card. Most of it is evidence against Richard, but this, he handed Jack a document. This was hidden in an encrypted folder. Jack's face went pale as he read. Emma, coloring nearby, noticed his distress. "Daddy? What's wrong?" How could he tell her? How could he explain that Sarah's biggest secret was only now coming to light? Emma had a twin. Jack's voice cracked. A sister. According to this, they were separated at birth. Emma's crayon clattered to the floor. "I have a sister." David nodded grimly. Sarah's diary explains everything. When she discovered she was having twins, she knew she couldn't hide both babies from Richard. She made an impossible choice, gave one daughter up for adoption through a private agency. Kept Emma because she had the birthmark that would eventually lead her to Jack. "Where is she?" Emma demanded, her voice trembling. "My sister, where did Mummy send her?" The adoption was closed, David explained gently. Sarah arranged it through a lawyer who died 2 years ago. The records are sealed. Jack pulled Emma close as she began to cry. "All this time, I had a sister and didn't know. Mummy never told me." "She was protecting you both," Jack said softly, though his own heart was breaking, like she always did. But Emma was inconsolable. "What if she's alone like I was? What if she needs us? We have to find her, Daddy." Jack looked at David, who shook his head slightly. The adoption agency closed years ago, without their records. "No," Emma pulled away from Jack, her face flushed with anger and tears. "You found me, you have to find her too. You promised no more secrets." She ran from the office before Jack could stop her. He found her in the building's small garden, curled up under a tree, clutching Sarah's locket. "Why didn't she tell me?" Emma whispered as Jack sat beside her. "In the car, that last night. Why didn't Mummy tell me about my sister?" I think Jack chose his words carefully. "She was trying to protect you from this pain, from feeling like you had to search for someone else you'd lost. But we could have been together, all of us." "Yes," Jack agreed, his own tears falling now. "We could have been." Emma touched her birthmark, the mark that had led her to Jack. Somewhere out there, her sister had grown up without this connection, without this piece of their shared heritage. "Daddy," her voice was small but determined. "Promise me something." "Anything, Princess?" "Promise we won't stop looking. Even if it takes years. She's family." Jack pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair so like Sarah's. "I promise. We'll find her, Emma. Somehow we'll bring her home." But as they sat there under the tree, both knew that some losses couldn't be undone, some absences couldn't be filled. The ghost of Emma's unknown sister would haunt them, another echo of Sarah's desperate attempts to protect her children. Above them, clouds gathered, and a soft rain began to fall. Nature's tears for a family fractured by secrets and fear, yet bound together by an unbreakable love that transcended even death itself. The search for Emma's twin sister was just beginning, but the pain of knowing she existed and had been lost to them would leave a scar on both their hearts that even time might never fully heal. The search for Emma's twin consumed Jack and Emma in the weeks that followed. Every spare moment was spent combing through adoption records, hiring private investigators, and following any lead, no matter how slim. Emma threw herself into the search with a desperation that worried Jack. She stopped eating properly, had trouble sleeping, and spent hours staring at old photographs of Sarah, as if looking for clues they might have missed. What if she looks exactly like me, Emma wondered one night, curled up in Jack's home office. Would she have Mummy's smile too? Your eyes. Jack's heart ached at questions he couldn't answer. The private investigators had hit dead end after dead end. The adoption agency's records had been destroyed in a fire years ago, and the lawyer who'd handled the adoption had left no traceable files. One morning, Emma came to breakfast clutching a newspaper clipping about twins reunited after decades apart. "See, Daddy, it can happen." But that same day, David brought devastating news. "Jack, we found something. About the lawyer who handled the adoption." The documents David presented painted a horrifying picture. The lawyer, James Morton, hadn't just died, he'd been murdered. His office burned down shortly after Sarah's death. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Richard Jack growled. He must have known about the twin. He was destroying any trail that could lead back to her. Emma overheard, and her reaction was heartbreaking. She ran to her room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. When Jack found her, she was tearing pages from her diary. "Emma, stop. What are you doing?" "It's all my fault," she sobbed. "If I hadn't had your birthmark, if Mummy hadn't kept me instead, my sister would be here. She'd be safe." Jack gathered her into his arms, letting her cry until she had no tears left. "Listen to me, Emma. None of this is your fault. The only person to blame is Richard, and he's going to pay for everything he's done to our family." But what if Emma's voice was barely a whisper? What if Richard hurt her too? Like he hurt Mummy? The possibility had haunted Jack's nightmares, but he couldn't let Emma carry that fear. Your mother was too smart for that. She would have made sure your sister was somewhere safe, somewhere Richard could never find her. That night, reviewing Sarah's files for the 100th time, Jack found something they'd missed: a series of payments to a Catholic orphanage in Boston, made in the months after the twins were born. Hope flared, only to be crushed when they discovered the orphanage had closed a decade ago. Emma's birthday approached, her first with Jack, but also a painful reminder of the sister who should have been celebrating with her. Jack planned a small party, hoping to lift her spirits. But when he went to wake her that morning, he found her bed empty. On her pillow lay a note in childish handwriting. "Daddy, I had a dream about my sister. She was crying for us. I have to find her. Please don't be mad. I'll be careful this time. Love, Emma." Panic seized Jack's heart. Not again. Not another child lost to the city's merciless streets. Security cameras showed Emma leaving the building at dawn, clutching a backpack and Sarah's locket. She'd headed east toward the bus station. She thinks her sister is in Boston, David realized as they reviewed the footage. The orphanage. Jack was already moving, calling in every favor, every resource he had. Police in 2 cities mobilized. Bus stations were checked. Airports monitored. But hours passed with no sign of Emma. The city that had once hidden her from Jack now hid her again, along with the desperate hope of finding her lost twin. As night fell, Jack stood in Emma's room, holding her favorite teddy bear. On her desk lay drawings of 2 little girls, mirror images of each other, holding hands with a smiling woman who looked like Sarah. "I promise to protect her," Jack whispered to Sarah's memory. "I promise no more pain, no more loss. Please, please help me find her again." Outside, a storm gathered, lightning illuminating the empty streets where a small girl searched for her other half, driven by the same determination that had once led her to her father. 2 daughters lost, 1 found, 1 still missing. The tragedy of Sarah's impossible choice continued to echo through their lives, a reminder that sometimes love means making decisions that break your own heart. Thunder rolled across the city, nature's lament for a family once again torn apart by secrets and sacrifice. The rain was falling heavily when they finally found Emma, huddled in the last row of a Boston-bound bus at the terminal. She didn't resist when Jack lifted her into his arms, her small body trembling with cold and exhaustion. "I had to try, Daddy," she whispered against his neck. "I kept thinking about her being alone, like I was at the orphanage." Jack held her tighter, his relief warring with heartbreak. "I know, Princess, I know." Back home, after Emma had been warmed, fed, and put to bed, Jack sat in his office reviewing Sarah's final video message, the one the FBI had found, the one he hadn't been ready to watch before. There's something else you need to know. Sarah's recorded voice was thick with tears. About Emma's sister. I named her Hope because that's what she gave me, hope that someday when it was safe, our whole family could be together. Jack paused the video, his hand shaking. Hope. Their other daughter had a name. I chose the family carefully, Sarah continued. A doctor and his wife who couldn't have children. They promised to love her, to keep her safe. But Jack, there's something you should know about Hope. Something that made me choose which twin to keep. The next words hit Jack like physical blows. Hope was born with a heart condition. She needed surgery, expensive care I couldn't provide while hiding from Richard. The family who adopted her, they could give her everything she needed. That's why I had to let her go. Jack sank into his chair, overwhelmed. A heart condition. While Emma had been marked for him by their shared birthmark, Hope had been marked by fate in a crueler way. I visit her sometimes, Sarah's confession continued. From a distance, she's strong, Jack. Like you, like Emma. The doctors say she's doing well, but if anything happens to me, find her. Tell her why. Tell her I loved her every single day. The video ended, leaving Jack alone with the weight of this new knowledge. How could he tell Emma? How could he explain that her sister's very survival had depended on their separation? A small sound made him turn. Emma stood in the doorway in her pajamas, tears streaming down her face. She had heard everything. Hope, she said the name like a prayer. My sister's name is Hope, and she was sick. Jack opened his arms and Emma ran into them, climbing onto his lap like she had so many times before. Is she still sick, Daddy? I don't know, Princess. But your mother made sure she had the best doctors, the best care. She wanted both of you to be safe, to be healthy. Emma touched her birthmark thoughtfully. That's why Mummy kept me instead. Because I was healthy, and I had your mark to find you. Yes, Jack's voice broke. She had to make an impossible choice. But Hope's family, Emma's voice trembled. They love her, like you love me. Jack thought of Sarah's words, the careful choice, the promise of love. Yes, sweetheart, they love her very much. Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing this new reality. Maybe we don't have to find her right away then, if she's happy and safe. Maybe we just need to know she's okay. Jack marveled at his daughter's wisdom, her capacity for understanding despite her young age. What made you change your mind? Emma touched the screen where Sarah's frozen image still showed. Mummy did everything to protect us, both of us. If finding Hope might hurt her or her family, that wouldn't be protecting her anymore. Fresh tears fell as Jack held his daughter, both of them mourning the sister they might never know, yet finding comfort in knowing she was loved. Outside, the storm began to ease, the rain softening to a gentle patter. Like tears washing away pain, it seemed to cleanse some of the raw ache from their hearts. They had lost Hope twice now, once at birth, and again in learning why she had to be given away. But in that loss they found a deeper understanding of Sarah's love, of the sacrifices a mother makes to protect her children. Daddy, Emma's voice was sleepy. Can we still pray for her, even if we can't find her? Of course, Princess. Every day. And so they sat together, father and daughter, sending silent prayers to the missing piece of their family, the Hope that Sarah had given away to save, the sister who would always be loved, even from afar. Some tragedies, they were learning, didn't need to end in reunion to find their resolution. Sometimes love meant letting go, trusting in the choices made by those who came before, and finding peace in knowing that somewhere, Hope was living the life Sarah had sacrificed everything to give her. The discovery came 3 months after Emma's attempted journey to Boston. Maria was cleaning the penthouse while Jack and Emma were at her first father-daughter dance when she found it a loose floorboard in Sarah's old walk-in closet, untouched since Jack had sealed the room 15 years ago. Inside was a small wooden box, its brass latch tarnished with age. On top lay a letter addressed to Jack in Sarah's familiar handwriting, open only when you found them both. Maria called Jack immediately. He and Emma rushed home, still in their formal wear, Emma's party dress rustling as they knelt by the hidden compartment. "Should we open it?" Daddy, Emma whispered, touching the box reverently. "We haven't found Hope yet." Jack studied the letter, his heart racing. "Your mother knew us both so well. She must have had a reason for hiding this, for leaving these specific instructions." But before they could decide, David burst in, his face flushed with excitement. "Jack, the FBI found something in Richard's offshore accounts. Regular payments to a medical facility in Boston, starting right after Sarah's death." Emma's eyes widened. "Hope's hospital." "The timing matches," David confirmed. "And there's more. The payments were made through a shell company owned by Dr. Thomas and Catherine Bennett." The name meant nothing to Jack, but Emma gasped. "Bennett. Daddy, look." She was pointing to the return address on the envelope in Jack's hands, Catherine Bennett, followed by a Boston address. "Hope's adoptive mother," Jack breathed. "Sarah left us a way to find her all along." With trembling hands, he opened the letter. "My dearest Jack, if you're reading this, you found our girls, both of them. Yes, I knew you would eventually. The same determination I fell in love with would never let you stop searching. The Bennetts are good people, Jack. They've given Hope everything we couldn't. But they also made me a promise when the time was right, when it was safe, they would help our daughters find each other. In this box is everything you need to know, but please, before you open it, be certain. Hope has a life, a family who loves her. Whatever you decide must be for both our daughters' happiness, not just to heal our own hearts. I loved you, Jack. Through everything, I never stopped. Take care of our girls. Always. Sarah." Jack looked at Emma, seeing the weight of this responsibility in her young eyes. "What do you think, Princess? Should we open it?" Emma touched her birthmark, then reached for the box. "Mommy trusted us to make the right choice. And Hope. She deserves to know she has a family who looked for her, even if she decides to stay with the Bennetts." As they reached for the box together, a sudden gust of wind through the open window scattered rose petals from Emma's dance corsage across Sarah's letter, a sign, perhaps, that some secrets were meant to be revealed when the time was right. The brass latch creaked as they opened it, revealing contents that would change their lives once again. But before they could examine them, Emma's small hand covered Jack's. "Wait," she said softly. "Before we look, promise me something." "Anything, Princess." "Promise we'll do what's best for Hope, even if it hurts us. Like Mummy did." Jack pulled his daughter close, marveling at her wisdom. "I promise. Whatever we find in this box, we'll honor your mother's courage and your sister's right to choose her own path." The box sat open before them, its secrets waiting to be revealed, while somewhere in Boston, a young girl with a healed heart lived unaware that her birth family was about to uncover the truth that would bridge the gap between two worlds, two families, and two sisters separated by love's most difficult choice. The contents of Sarah's box told a story that took their breath away. Photos documented Hope's early years, her first steps, first smile, first day of school. Catherine Bennett had sent them faithfully, keeping her promise to Sarah that Hope would never be truly lost to her birth family. "She looks just like me," Emma whispered, touching a recent school photo. The resemblance was stunning, the same golden brown hair, the same determined set of the jaw. Only the birthmark was missing, replaced by a small surgical scar near Hope's heart. Letters from Catherine detailed Hope's progress, successful surgeries, academic achievements, her love of painting, a talent she shared with Sarah. But it was the final letter, dated just weeks before Sarah's death, that changed everything. Dear Sarah, Hope asked about her birth mother today. She's always known she was adopted. We believed in honesty from the start. But now she's asking specific questions about why she was given up, about whether she has any siblings. Thomas and I have discussed it extensively. When you feel it's safe, when Richard can no longer hurt anyone, we want to help Hope connect with her birth family. She deserves to know about her brave mother, her twin sister, and the sacrifice made to keep them both safe. With love and gratitude, Catherine. Jack read the letter twice, his hands shaking. They were waiting. All this time they were just waiting for Richard to be caught. Emma pulled out more photos. Hope at her piano recital, Hope winning a school art contest, Hope blowing out birthday candles with Catherine and Thomas Bennett beaming beside her. She's happy, Daddy, Emma said softly. They love her like you love me. Yes, they do. Jack studied a recent family photo. The Bennetts looked kind, their love for Hope evident in every captured moment. But there was something else in the box: medical records showing Hope's heart condition was fully resolved. The surgeries had been successful, allowing her to live a normal, healthy life. Your mother made the right choice, Jack realized. The Bennetts could give Hope the medical care she needed while keeping her safe from Richard. And you, he touched Emma's birthmark. You were marked to find me, to expose Richard's crimes and make it safe for everyone. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing this. So what do we do now? Do we tell Hope about us? Before Jack could answer, his phone rang. It was David. Jack, you need to see this. Richard's talking. He's admitted everything: the fraud, Sarah's murder, even his role in separating the twins. He knows he's finished, and he's taking everyone involved down with him. It's over. Jack's voice cracked. Really over? The FBI's closing the case. Richard and his conspirators will never see freedom again. Emma, who had been listening, picked up Sarah's final letter. Mummy said to wait until it was safe. Now it is. Jack looked at his daughter, so wise beyond her years, so like Sarah in her capacity for understanding. What do you think we should do? Emma gathered the photos of Hope, arranging them carefully. I think we should write to the Bennetts. Tell them we found Sarah's box, that we know they kept their promise to her. And maybe what, Princess? Maybe we could ask if Hope wants to know about us. No pressure, no big changes. Just letting her know she has a sister who thinks about her every day. Jack pulled Emma into his arms, his heart swelling with pride. When did you get so wise? Mummy taught me, Emma said simply. Through her letters, her choices. She always did what was best for both of us, even when it hurt. Together they began composing a letter to the Bennetts, choosing their words carefully, respecting the delicate balance between two families bound by love for the same child. But they didn't notice one final envelope that had slipped beneath the floorboard: a letter from Hope herself, written to the sister she somehow knew existed, waiting to complete the circle Sarah had drawn around her daughters so many years ago. The response from the Bennetts arrived on a crisp autumn morning, exactly 1 week after Jack and Emma sent their letter. Inside the envelope was a smaller one, marked simply to my sister. But Emma's hands trembled as she opened it. A photograph fell out: Hope sitting at a piano, her smile achingly familiar, but it was the letter that made both Emma and Jack catch their breath. Dear Emma, Mom and Dad, the Bennetts, told me about you today. They showed me your picture from the newspapers when you found your dad. Our dad. It was like looking in a mirror. I've always known I was adopted. Mom and Dad never hid it from me. They told me about my heart condition, about how my birth mother made sure I got the best care. But they never told me I had a twin. They were waiting, they said, until it was safe. I used to dream about you. Isn't that strange? I'd wake up feeling like part of me was missing, like someone was calling my name from far away. Now I know why. I have so many questions. Do you like painting? I love it. My art teacher says I get lost in my own world when I paint, just like Mom told me our birth mother used to do. Do you have her smile? The Bennetts say you do. They showed me the box of photos your dad found. You've been through so much searching for our family, fighting bad people. You're so brave, like our mother was. I want you to know that I'm okay. The Bennetts are wonderful parents. They've given me everything I could ever need. But knowing I have a sister, it fills a space in my heart I didn't even know was empty. Mom and Dad suggest we take things slow. Maybe we could write to each other first, get to know each other. They say we could meet when we're both ready. I've enclosed a painting I did last week. Somehow I think I was painting you before I even knew you existed. Your sister that feels amazing to write. Hope. The painting showed two girls in a garden, their faces mirror images of each other, surrounded by butterflies. In the background, a woman with Sarah's smile watched over them. Emma traced the painted figures with her finger, tears falling freely. She knows us, Daddy. She feels it too. Jack held his daughter close, his own eyes wet. Your mother was right. Love finds a way even across time and distance. They spent the evening composing a response, Emma pouring her heart into pages of sisterly sharing her favorite colors, her dreams, her memories of Sarah. She included a photo of herself with Jack, both touching their birthmarks. See, she wrote, "This is how I found Daddy. Maybe someday my mark can help me find you too." As Jack sealed the envelope, Emma suddenly remembered something. She ran to her room, returning with Sarah's locket. "Can we send this to Hope? Mummy would want her to have it." Jack kissed her forehead, overwhelmed by her generosity. "You're amazing, you know that. Just like your mother." They added the locket to the package, along with a note explaining its significance. As they walked to the mailbox together, Emma looked up at the stars appearing in the twilight sky. "Do you think Mummy knows that we found each other?" Jack remembered Sarah's words from her final video, "Love will find a way," and it had, through all the darkness and pain, leading two sisters to reach across the void that had separated them. "Yes, Princess, I think she knows. I think she's been helping us all along." The letter dropped into the mailbox, carrying with it hopes, dreams, and the promise of a family slowly becoming whole again. Not through dramatic revelations or sudden changes, but through the patient nurturing of connections that had always existed, waiting to be discovered. Like the birthmark that had led Emma to Jack, like the heart that had led Hope to the Bennetts, love would show them the way forward. Spring arrived in a burst of cherry blossoms, scattering pink petals across the garden where two identical girls sat side by side on a wooden swing. After months of letters, photos and video calls, Emma and Hope had finally met in person. "It's strange," Hope said, touching her surgical scar while Emma touched her birthmark. "Like looking in a mirror that shows two different paths." "Mummy knew exactly what she was doing," Emma replied. "She made sure we each had what we needed. You got the doctors who saved your heart, and I got the mark that would lead me to Daddy." From the patio, Jack watched his daughters together, marveling at how naturally they'd connected. The Bennetts stood beside him, Catherine wiping tears from her eyes as she watched Hope laugh at something Emma whispered. "Sarah would be so proud," Catherine said softly. Both her girls together at last. The past months had transformed all their lives. After the initial meeting, carefully arranged at a neutral location, the girls had formed an instant bond that transcended their years apart. Weekly video calls became daily. Letters and artwork flowed between Boston and New York. The Bennetts had been extraordinary, opening their hearts not just to Emma but to Jack as well. They shared stories of Hope's childhood, filled in the gaps of those missing years, and most importantly helped both girls understand that love multiplies, it doesn't divide. "Daddy," Emma called out. Come see what Hope painted." Jack joined them at the swing, where Hope was showing Emma a watercolor of Sarah's grave, but transformed. Instead of a somber headstone, she'd painted it surrounded by blooming roses, butterflies, and two small girls holding hands, while a gentle spirit watched over them. "It's how I imagine her watching us," Hope explained shyly. "Is that okay?" Jack knelt between his daughters, overwhelmed by the love radiating from Hope's art. "It's perfect. Your mother had the same gift, seeing beauty even in the saddest things." Thomas Bennett approached, carrying a package wrapped in silver paper. "Hope, why don't you and Emma show your father what else you've been working on?" The girls exchanged excited glances. Emma pulled Jack to sit between them on the swing while Hope carefully unwrapped the package. Inside was a handmade book, its cover decorated with pressed flowers and butterflies. The title read "The Story of Us" by Emma and Hope Thornton Bennett. "We wrote it together," Emma explained as Hope opened to the first page. "About Mummy and how she kept us both safe in different ways. About finding each other," Hope added, "and about having two families who love us." The pages told their story through a child's eyes, not focusing on the tragedy and betrayal, but on the love that had guided them back together. Sarah's sacrifice was portrayed not as a separation, but as a mother's clever plan to keep both her daughters safe until they could find each other again. "Turn to the last page," Daddy, Emma urged. There, in careful handwriting, was a poem they'd written together. Two paths diverged in a stormy night. One marked by love, one marked by light. But Mother's wisdom showed the way, to bring us back to light of day. Now two hearts beat as one again. Two families joined by love's refrain. For in the end, what matters most is not the years that we had lost, but all the love that helped us find. The path back home, two hearts combined. Jack pulled both girls close, his own heart full to bursting. Above them, cherry blossoms continued to fall, nature's confetti celebrating a family that had found its way back together through love's most difficult choices. But the day's biggest revelation was still to come, waiting in an envelope that Catherine Bennett was holding, her hands trembling slightly as she approached the swing. Catherine Bennett's hands trembled as she held out the envelope. "Sarah gave this to me 15 years ago, with instructions to share it when both girls were together and Richard was no longer a threat." The envelope was old, its edges worn, but Sarah's handwriting remained clear for my daughters when they find each other. Emma and Hope pressed close to Jack as he carefully opened it. Inside was a letter, along with two identical silver chains, each bearing half of a heart-shaped pendant. "My dearest Emma and Hope," Jack read, his voice thick with emotion. "If you're reading this, then love has done what I always believed it would, brought you back together. These necklaces belong to my grandmother, who also had twins. She split the heart between them, saying that no matter how far apart life took them, they would always find their way back to each other." Hope touched her surgical scar while Emma reached for her birthmark, their own unique markers of identity and destiny. "I've split the heart between you," the letter continued, not as a symbol of separation, but as a promise of reunion. "Emma, your half bears the sun like the mark you share with your father, guiding you to him. Hope, yours bears the moon like the strength you carried in your heart, leading you to the family who could heal you." The girls carefully joined the pendants. When connected, they formed a perfect heart with an inscription, "Love finds a way." "There's more," Jack said softly, turning the page. "I know you must have questions about why I chose as I did, about whether I loved one of you more than the other. The answer is simple: I loved you both completely, wholly, with every breath I took. Each choice I made was to give you both your best chance at life." Emma leaned against Jack, while Hope curled into Catherine's embrace, both girls listening intently as their mother's words bridged the years between them. Emma, your birthmark was a sign of connection to your father that would help you find him when the time was right. Hope, your heart condition led you to the Bennets, who could give you the care you needed when I couldn't, but both of you carried pieces of my heart. Just as you now carry pieces of this necklace. Thomas Bennet wrapped his arm around Catherine as she wiped away tears. Jack continued reading, his voice steady despite his own emotions. To the Bennets, thank you for loving Hope as your own, for keeping her safe, for being the parents she needed when I couldn't be there. To Jack, thank you for finding Emma, for being the father I always knew you could be, for never giving up until our family was whole again. The letter's final words were written in larger text, as if Sarah had wanted to make absolutely sure they would be read. My precious daughters, remember this: you were never truly separated. Love connected you across time and distance, through dreams and whispered prayers, through art and music and all the ways your hearts spoke to each other. You are mirrors of each other's souls, reflections of a love that could not be broken by distance or fear or even death. As Jack folded the letter, Emma and Hope clasped their necklaces together again, completing the heart their mother had split to keep them safe. Together again, Hope whispered. Just like Mummy planned, Emma added. The two families, Thorntons and Bennets, gathered closer, drawn together by the love of a woman who had sacrificed everything to protect her daughters, and by the boundless capacity of children's hearts to bridge any divide with love. But Sarah had left them one final gift, a revelation that would ensure her daughter's bond would never be broken again. The final gift was hidden in plain sight, a trust fund Sarah had established before her death, revealed in a document that Catherine pulled from the envelope's deepest recess. Sarah knew this day would come, Catherine explained. She set up two identical trusts, one for each girl, but there's a condition: they can only access them together as sisters. The trust wasn't just money, it was a foundation designed to help other families separated by circumstance find their way back to each other. Sarah had transformed her pain into purpose, creating a legacy that would help other children like Emma and Hope. She wants us to help others, Emma realized, clutching her half of the heart pendant. Like she helped us, Hope added, completing the heart with her piece. Jack studied the document, amazed by Sarah's foresight. The foundation would provide medical care for children like Hope, support for single parents like Sarah had been, and resources to help separated families reconnect. Your mother never stopped thinking about both of you, Thomas Bennet said softly. Even when she had to let Hope go, she was planning for this moment. The two families gathered in Sarah's garden, the same garden where Hope had painted her vision of their reunion. Catherine and Thomas Bennet had decided to move their medical practice to New York, allowing the girls to grow up together while maintaining both their family bonds. We're not losing Hope, Catherine had explained when she announced their decision. We're expanding our family just as Sarah always intended. Emma and Hope sat together on the garden swing, their joined pendants catching the sunlight. Above them, cherry blossoms continued to fall, nature's blessing on their reunion. Daddy, Emma called. Can we go visit Mummy? All of us. At Sarah's grave, now surrounded by blooming roses just as Hope had painted, the two families stood together. The girls placed their artwork against the headstone, Emma's photographs and Hope's paintings, creating a colorful tribute to their mother's love. Look, Mummy, Emma whispered. We did it. We found each other just like you planned. And we're going to help other families find each other too, Hope added. Through your foundation. Jack placed a hand on each daughter's shoulder while the Bennets stood close by. Together, they had reformed the circle of love that Sarah had drawn around her children so many years ago. Sarah, Jack spoke softly. You would be so proud of our girls. They have your strength, your creativity, your capacity for love. And now they'll carry on your legacy, helping other families heal. As if in response, a butterfly landed on the joined heart pendants the girls wore, its wings the same shade of blue as Sarah's eyes had been. Emma and Hope smiled at each other, their mother's daughters in every way that mattered. Different paths had led them here, one marked by a birthmark that led to a father's love, one marked by a scar that led to healing. But in the end, both paths led home. "Ready to go help other families find each other, Jack?" asked his daughters. The girls nodded, their joined pendants glinting in the sun. Above them, cherry blossoms continued their gentle dance, and somewhere they knew Sarah was smiling. For in the end, love had found a way not just for one family, but for all the families their foundation would help reunite. Sarah's legacy would live on through her daughters, proof that even the deepest wounds could heal through love's endless capacity for miracle. Two paths had diverged in darkness, but love had brought them back together in light, and that, perhaps, was Sarah's greatest gift of all. We hope this touching tale of family love and redemption has moved your heart. If this story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Support our team by subscribing to the channel and sharing this video with loved ones who might find comfort and hope in Emma and Hope's journey. Your likes and engagement help us continue bringing powerful stories that remind us of love's ability to overcome any obstacle. Join our community of storytellers and dreamers. Subscribe now.